Hey everyone, this is a video over proportions. Proportions are equivalent fractions. I'm going to have one fraction set equal to another fraction. In this case, I have 1/2 equals 4/8. I guess how you're more readily to see this is as 4/8 equals 1/2. Because as you do a problem and you work it, you should always write your fraction in simplest form, and 4/8 in its simplest form is 1/2. So I can say 4/8 does equal 1/2. Both of these have a value of 0.5. Or we could even say this, 50%, right? Both of those are the same. They're the same value. Well, that's all that proportions are, is that we're taking and we're saying these are equivalent. 3/4 equals some number over 16. And how we find it? Well, there's two ways to find it. You can use cross multiplication, or you can use equivalence. Cross multiplication always works. Sometimes equivalence it works, but you have to be able to see the number. So for this one here, we will do some equivalence first, because most of y'all have already looked at this problem and said, hey, I know what x equals. You can see the math, and that's excellent. That's what equivalence is. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, okay, I don't know what x is, but I know that 3/4 is equal to something 16ths. So I can look at 4 and 16. How did I go from 4 to 16? What did I do to 4 to make it become 16? Well, I multiplied by 4, didn't I? And you know in math, whatever you do to the bottom, or whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So if I multiplied by 4 down here, guess what I have to do? I have to multiply by 4 up there. And that is equivalence. So what is my value of x? I know that x equals 3 times 4, which is 12. That is my answer. What this is it's simply saying 3/4 is equal to 12/16. If I were to simplify 16, dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 4, I would get 3/4. But sometimes you just can't see it, so that's why we look at doing some cross multiplication. Okay, cross multiplication. What that means is I say top to bottom and bottom to top. I'm going to say 3 times 16, so it becomes 3 times 16 equals 4 times x. 4 times x. 3 times 16 is 48. And now I have just a simple one-step equation. I divide both sides by 4, and 12 equals x. Same thing. Same answers. Equivalence is nice because oftentimes you just see the answer and you can use that. Cross multiplication, though, is always safe, because whenever you can't see the numbers, that's where it matters. So let's look at the next problem. Whenever you look at it, you sit there and say, oh my goodness, I'm going from 9 to 8. How did I do that? And there is no -1. It's only through multiplication. Okay, so I can't see the equivalence here. So what am I left with doing? Cross multiplying. So I'm going to say 9 times x. So 9 times x equals 4 times 8. 4 times 8. So that becomes 9x equals 32. Again, I now have a one-step equation. Divide both sides by 9, and I'm left with simply that. X equals 32/9. I would have never known that to be the equivalence up here. I could have guessed and done stuff, but so cross multiplication allowed me to get a very unusual fraction. and that is what both of them change by. You can check that on your calculator. You can say, okay, 9/4 is equal to 8 over 32/9, and you can use your calculator to check those values. See if my calculator will actually show up on yours. There we go. Not very well, but somewhat well. See if I slide it over here more into the light. There we go. So if I were to say 9 divided by 4, that gives me 2.25. And now for 8 divided by 32/9, I'm going to say 32 divided by 9, and then 8 divided by that answer, 2.25. Or written as a percent, excellent. Okay, so that's why cross multiplication is important. Do not just rely on equivalence. Sometimes your answers will be a very odd answer. All right, so then we can also have a statement in which we can be able to figure out, practical, 40 pounds of dog food lasts 2.5 weeks. How much dog food do you need for 1 month? So what I have here is I have 40 pounds of dog food, and I'm going to write this as a decimal because I know 1/2 is 0.5. That makes the work easier. And this up here was pounds, right? And this down here was time given in weeks. So I need to make sure that my other fraction matches up. What was pounds up top need to be pounds up here. How much dog food is needed for 1 month or 4 weeks? Well, weeks is down in the numbers 4, and what I'm trying to find out is the quantity, right? How many pounds? So X. I can look at this and tell you I don't really know the equivalence to go from 2.5 to 4. I can figure it out, but it may just be easier to cross multiply. 40 times 4, so 40 times 4 equals 2.5 times x. 2.5 times x. That gives me 160 is equal to 2.5x. Okay, so this one wasn't as bad as this one up here in my quantities, but it's still hard for me to look at and find equivalence in saying 2.5 to 4. Now, that'd be nice if it was 5, then I know that it would be 2. Do you understand? Alright, so divide both sides by 2.5. Again, this is a simple one-step equation. I want to get x by itself, so I divide both sides by 2.5. And 160 divided by 2.5 is 64. Again, I can check that. I can say, okay, 40 over 2.5 is equal to 64 over 4. And we'll do that by using the calculator. Okay, so again, I have, slide this over more so y'all have the stuff there. There we go. I have 40 divided by 2.5. That equals 16. And 64 divided by 4 equals 16. Yes? Excellent. So guys, that is your work on proportions. Remember, proportions are equivalent fractions. Two fractions separated by an equal sign. And you can use cross multiplication or equivalence. Whenever you can see it, you can use equivalence. Whenever it is something in which you can't see, like how did I go from 9 to 8, you can't. And remember this, There is no subtraction or addition. This is dealing with multiplication. Remember, division is a form of multiplication. So, please watch your publisher's videos, critically think and structure your homework, and good luck on the remaining homework.